Hello and welcome, everyone. We're really glad to have you here for the next session of our Day 1 and Beyond Security series. You can find the recordings of previous sessions on the same Day 1 and Beyond page. And while you're there, please take a moment to review the other series and webinars that we have added for you. Our topic today is OCI approach to multi-cloud. And as the name suggests, you'll be introduced to a private connectivity strategy to interconnect many cloud providers to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. We'll cover some use cases and live demo focusing on establishing a multi-cloud connection. This session is being recorded and you'll have access to the recording within 3 to 4 business days. My name is Renu Bhatt. I'm a program lead with the customer enablement team. And today I'm joined by Jake Bloom and Mohsen Kamal as the main presenters. With that, please enjoy the session. Jake, you can take it forward now.
Thanks, Renu. I appreciate that. I'm going to double down on the introduction real quick. My name is Jake Bloom. I'm a principal solutions architect on the Oracle Cloud engineering team. I focus on connectivity and security aspects for our Oracle Cloud customers. I am joined with my co-host, Mohsen, who is also on my team that focuses on the same thing. We focus heavily on multi-cloud connectivity and the security aspects of the platform, as well as the panelists that will be answering any questions from a chat perspective. So before we begin, I want to say thank you, everybody, for joining today. Happy Monday to everybody that is seeing this live, and for anybody that's not, I hope that you enjoy the session. Before we begin, we want to set the tone on where this information is coming from. So the most important thing that you can get from this session is that you can get all this information without needing to watch any more videos or anything like that. It's really important that you know where to get the information so that you can extend your knowledge. And we'll start with the screen that you can see here, which is the Multi-Cloud Network Connectivity Live Lab. So let me quickly help you understand what this resource is. So if you go into Google and you type in Oracle Live Labs, you'll go to this website, which is our Live Labs homepage, landing page. And here what you will find is a lot of different labs for Oracle Cloud. So the one that I'm showing you today is the multi-cloud networking connectivity. However, there's many labs on many different use cases for Oracle Cloud that you can use here. So if you have not been in this resource before, I highly recommend taking a look at it. It will extend your knowledge greatly on how OCI works. That being said, for this particular lab, there is a kind of a unique way of how we do the build out. This is going to go through the end-to-end process for how the connectivity looks like within Oracle Cloud, as well as the build out for the external connectivity, which we call Fast Connect, through various providers. So take a look at this workshop. I'm going to quickly walk through just some examples on what this looks like when you click on Start the Lab. So we'll say run in your own tenancy, which means that you have officially started to run, logged into your Oracle Cloud Console. And then each of these labs are critical milestones that you will be running through to ultimately cross-connect clouds. So you'll have the VCN, the Dynamic Routing Gateway, a virtual machine will be deployed, Fast Connect, which is the relatively elaborate step. And then afterwards, you will have the multi-cloud verification. Each of these labs has a video walkthrough. So if you don't have access to the Oracle Cloud, or if you don't have access to a particular provider, network service provider, then you can click on play. And even if you don't have access to it, if you're not paying for it, you can still press play and walk through the steps as if you were in the console. So this should be useful for pretty much everybody. That being said, let's go ahead and go back to the presentation. One more thing before I do begin as well is there is going to be a QR code at the end of the session that will land you directly to that live lab. So if you don't know where to go exactly, then there will be another opportunity to capture where that live lab is. So you can go ahead and take a look after the session. So there'll be 3 critical or core topics for today's session. The first one is the introduction to Oracle Cloud Networking. This is going to cover 3 foundational concepts in order for you to understand all the things that we're going to be talking about today. Afterwards, we are going to be overviewing the use cases for multi-cloud connectivity. There's many of them. We'll cover a few and why you would want to do them. However, it extends well beyond what we're going to be talking about today. Last but not least is the multi-cloud connectivity solutions overview. So there is three different ways to accomplish the same goal. We have the Azure Interconnect, Megaport, and Equinix as three different ways to connect into different cloud providers. And we will be walking through the steps for each one of those because there is a lot of differences between the solutions. At the end of the day, if we took the agenda out of this, the focus here primarily is that this is private, secure connectivity across clouds. So anytime that we're building this connectivity, this is not traffic going over the internet. This is secure private connections that is happening between you and external connectivity between you as well in a different resource. So everything is private and secure. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into the core topics for, or the foundations for OCI. So this is what we call the Introduction to Oracle Cloud Networking. So this will be a crash course on what the objects are. So I have three objects on here. I'm going to summarize what they do, and then I will break down in deeper detail in the following slides. So the first one is the virtual cloud network. You may be familiar with this with other cloud providers, such as VPCs or VNets, or it is just a private IP space where workloads will land from a network perspective. So that's what that is. The dynamic routing gateway is the second object that is a critical component to the private connectivity here. What this will do is this will route traffic between the VCN and to an external network. We'll also facilitate other connections, which probably are not in the scope for this session, but this is ultimately the regional router that will connect all things within OCI. Last but not least is Fast Connect, which is the private high-performance connection for Oracle Cloud that will connect to other cloud providers or to your on-premise infrastructure without traversing the internet. So it is a secure, highly available, highly performant connection that you build as part of your Oracle Cloud environment. So we'll break down each one of these topics. These are all animated slides, so you'll be able to see what the build out looks like and understand the relationship for each of these objects. What we'll also do as part of the session is we'll build out an architecture diagram. We'll start simple and we'll keep adding more constructs to have you understand exactly how these relate to each other from an architectural perspective. So as stated before, the VCN is the first critical component. It is the private landing zone for workloads. Another key component is this is a regional construct. So we have about 45 regions at this point, I believe. So when you deploy within a region, let's say Ashburn or Phoenix, this VCN will be available within the entire region. It also has workload level stateful firewalls. So there is a layer 4 firewall that gets deployed as part of every instance that is within the VCN. So you also have the ability to police traffic, allow application perimeters, and secure things to only talk to what they need. It's the ability to give you a least privilege model or microsegmentation. So let's actually build this out. So let's say that I'm in the console and I've deployed my first VCN. This will be a /16, which is a large chunk of IP space so that I can begin carving it out and deploying my workloads. The child object for a VCN is a subnet. I can have one or many subnets. In this example, I only have one, and I'm using a smaller IP space to deploy. On the right-hand side, I'll grab my laser pointer. There's two objects right here. This is the network security list or security groups. This is the firewall that I was talking about earlier. And there's also route tables, which give you the ability to route traffic outside of the VCN for either traffic for firewalling, going out to the internet, going out to a private connection, etc. And last but not least, probably the most important thing is that you can deploy resources within a VCN. So if I have a database, virtual machine, microservices, many different resources that you deploy as an IaaS component for OCI are going to live within these subnets. And then they will all have the same ability from a connectivity perspective to do all the things that we're talking about today. The second component, which is the dynamic routing gateway. So there's three things that you're going to want to remember for this session for the DRG. The first is that this is private connectivity. It connects VCNs within an OCI region. It connects clouds. It connects on-premise data centers. It is the private connection hub for an entire region, and it crosses beyond the OCI boundary. As stated before, it is a regional construct. So I have one DRG in Ashburn, and it will span the entire region. It's not an availability domain or somewhat of a data center level object. It spans multiple availability domains. Last but not least, an important fundamental component of this is a logical construct. So it's a software-driven object within OCI. When you manage it, you're managing one DRG. However, underneath the hood of OCI, it is redundant by nature. So you don't need to deploy multiples of these objects in order to be highly available. All right, so we'll continue the build out. So as stated earlier, when you have a VCN or multiple VCNs, they're going to be connecting to a dynamic routing gateway. And we talked about actually building this out from an architecture perspective, which is really important. So we will show you what that does. It's really simple, but I want to make sure that you understand the core concept here is that if I have one VCN and it needs to talk to another VCN, then it will go through a dynamic routing gateway before it reaches its final destination. Same thing with Kubernetes, any other service within a VCN, you'll be able to communicate within the between VCNs. Another, probably more important aspect is that you have the ability to do transitive routing. So if you need to insert a firewall, either between VCNs or across clouds, then the DRG also gives you the ability to do that. So traffic will go and have a bump in the wire approach and will be sent to the next generation firewall before it gets sent to the database. Same thing is true for a virtual machine. If a virtual machine needs to reach out to a database, then it will go through next generation firewall before it goes to a database. This is not necessarily a best practice, but this is just to at least get your mind rolling on some possible strategies for inserting a next generation firewall into your workloads. Last but not least, it gives you the ability to cross-connect other cloud providers. So we will be diving deeper into this. There's just a simple line here. There's a lot more to build out here, but you have the ability to deploy your AWS and Azure environment or GCP. They'll land in the DRG, and then they will go to the database in this example. So that's various ways that the dynamic routing gateway is capable of having communication outside and going to a database. All right, so that is the cooperation between the DRG and the VCN. Now let's talk about and extend our knowledge into the fast connect. So this is really the external connectivity that we're going to focus on for this lab that will give you guys more information on and just build out external infrastructure. So as stated in the slides, it is the ability to, the Fast Connect gives you the ability to privately connect Oracle Cloud to other cloud providers and data centers. It is highly performant and highly available, and it's truly what makes the multi-cloud possible. Without these connections, you'd be riding over the internet, and you may be having performance ambiguity and maybe not highly available. These are truly rock solid enterprise connections for external availability. And since we're building out this architecture, let's continue to build it out. So I have the same architecture here. I have 3 VCNs, and then I also have a transit VCN. I have the same DRG. The new part for here is if you follow my mouse, there's a fast connect, there's 2 network service providers, and then there is 3 cloud providers as well as a data center. So we've added this bottom left-hand side. And what we'll do is a little bit more of elaborate of a packet walk. We're not fully built out yet, but this is really what ends up happening. So if I need to integrate AWS, an example partner that you could use is Equinix to facilitate a connection between AWS and OCI. So this would be another partner that you'd be working with. They'll terminate the connection between Direct Connect and Fast Connect. And then Fast Connect will terminate to the dynamic routing gateway. And then from there, we've already seen the the packet walk, right? It'll go to a next generation firewall if we choose to insert that, and then go to a database. The same is true for an on-premise infrastructure. So if I want to choose Megaport, for example, then I have the ability to connect Megaport from my data center on-prem and go to Fast Connect for the same provider, and then transit the firewall and then go to a virtual machine. Another and possibly most important connection that we have the ability to use is the Azure Interconnect. This is a unique partnership that we have with Azure, which gives you first-party access between Fast Connect and ExpressRoute. So since we have a relationship with Azure, for this particular connection, there is no network service provider that you need a relationship with. You can actually deploy this infrastructure directly between your Azure and OCI accounts. That being said, we'll go ahead and hand it over to Mr. Mohsen Kamal to talk about the multi-cloud connectivity use cases.
All right. Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take a look at a couple of use cases that we have for the multi-cloud connectivity. So first of all, I would say split tier architecture. This is whenever I have seen multi-cloud connectivity getting deployed, 70 to 80% of the time, this is for this particular use case where customers are looking to do a split tier architecture where you have apps deployed in one of the CSP and you're using databases on the Oracle side or the vice versa. Now, when it comes to multi-cloud connectivity, the basic issue or the main issue that you will get is the latency. Now, between apps and databases, the latency is very important. So we're gonna demo a little bit different partners today, and we'll talk over a little bit of latency and how we are basically managing that. But for this particular use case, do remember that when you are looking to deploy this, latency is one concern that you always wanna choose the connectivity or the partner, whichever you use, the latency is minimum in those regards. Next one, share firewall. This is where you will actually use multi-cloud connectivity to share resources across the clouds. So for example, this is just one example of a firewall. You could share other resources across the clouds as well. Let's suppose you have a firewall in one of the cloud and then you don't want to manage a new firewall instance in a separate cloud from the cost reasons or from the manageability perspective, and just want to use the same particular firewall. So you can actually set up your multi-cloud connectivity and consume the firewall in one of the cloud. So that's another use case that you will see multi-cloud connectivity getting stood up. Although this is a bit of a corner use case, but nonetheless, you will see these kind of deployments in the getting deployed in multiple customers. All right. On-prem connectivity, specifically for OCVS, this is another main use case. We see this particular connectivity getting set up. Here, you're basically just connecting multiple VMware vCenters together and building out an underlay. Obviously, when you set up a OCVS or any VMware on a different CSP and connect them together, there is a connectivity that comes on top of it. So it will basically just gonna be a VMware layer 2 extension across multiple clouds, but it does need a underlay connectivity. So for underlay connectivity, you will use this multi-cloud connectivity, which Jake has extensively gone over using the Fast Connect itself. And we're gonna demo a couple of those connectivities later on as well. Cloud migration, my favorite. So you will see OCI has a lot of cost advantages that you can take as compared to other cloud service providers. When you are looking to migrate a bunch of workloads from one CSP, Azure, AWS, GCP, and want to move those workloads to OCI, that's another use case that you will see this multi-cloud connectivity getting established. This is particularly quite common as well. It all depends, which cloud service provider is offering from an infrastructure perspective better dollar per compute. So you'll see a lot of workloads getting moved to OCI, just taking advantage of OCI cost benefits. Which use case you are more inclined to adopt for the multi-cloud connectivity? And it's the same use cases that I just went over: split tier architecture, share the firewall, VMware migration, or just general cloud migration. Yeah, so the most top two use cases, I would say, split tier architecture and cloud migration. So these are in real terms, or in actual terms, these are the two main use cases that you will see across most of the enterprises that we have seen. Okay, let's take a look at today's build out and what we will be demoing today. So first of all, as Jake mentioned, today we will have three connectivity models. So first of all, Azure Interconnect. That's a strategic partnership between Oracle and Microsoft. You don't need any kind of third-party provider. You can just go into each of Azure and OCI console and set up this connectivity. So you don't need any third-party connectivity provider. And one thing to I would highlight here is that this is actually a collaboration between OCI and Azure. When it comes to this collaboration, you can basically, uh, automate both sides of connectivities as well. And at the same time, if you run into any kind of problems, any kind of troubleshooting is needed, you can open cases with either Microsoft or Oracle and then take care of both sides. Second use case we have today is for the Megaport connectivity. So this is the partner-based partner-based connectivity in which we'll use Megaport MCR router. So this basically will stitch the connectivities between two cloud providers. One side is going to be Azure, the other side is going to be Oracle. And then the MCR router is going to do the routing between these cloud service providers. Third use case for today is Equinix. Equinix has multiple options when it comes to just setting up the connectivity itself between the clouds. One is that you can use Equinix Cloud Router. One is you can use a third-party router. In today's demo, we will go over a third-party router, which basically you can just launch it in Equinix Cloud. And connect both of those connections, one from AWS into that third-party router and one from Oracle. And that particular router does all of the routing between the clouds. So your BGP is going to terminate on that third-party device, and then the connectivity will get established through that third-party device. And the end goal is to actually have this test environment that we have in the Oracle side to be able to reach the workloads in Azure and AWS. Okay, let's start out with the Azure Interconnect. So first of all, latency that I mentioned earlier. The main challenge when it comes to multi-cloud connectivity is latency. And to tackle this particular problem, Oracle and Microsoft got into this strategic partnership to provide the minimum latency possible. Now, one thing that Oracle and Azure make sure is the latency is always less than 2 milliseconds between the edge routers, between OCI and Azure. The end-to-end latency, let's suppose you have an application running between Azure and OCI that needs to connect. The end-to-end latency can be a little bit more than 2 milliseconds, but the latency, if you have the ability to measure from, for example, from the express route edge to the fast connect on OCI, it will always be less than 2 milliseconds. And you will not find this with third-party devices, right? Or third-party service providers like Megaport or Equinix, because there is no Megaport router involved or any third-party router that is involved. All right, and this is everything is automated. What you can do is you can even set up your Terraforms in such a way that both connectivities are automatically deployed. You can be up and running between for this connectivity between Azure and OCI in less than an hour. Okay, so we'll start out from Azure. And first of all, we'll go set up the Azure side construct, start with the VNG. All right, give this a name. And we're starting out with the VNG is just that, as you guys, if you're familiar with Azure, that takes the most time. It's going to take like 45 minutes to get this established. We're going to fast forward through this, but we'll start from the Azure, set up a virtual network, set up a subnet. And one thing for this particular connectivity, which we'll show you later on as well, is that Azure is needed to be done first because we would use the key, the service key from Azure side into OCI. All right, so this will get our VNG going. Click create. We'll wait for the deployment. We'll just fast forward it. All right, let's get the express route going. Click create, go to express route. Select your resource group, region, give this a name. Now, one thing to note here is when it comes to provider, pick Oracle Cloud from the list. The location that you want to bring this connectivity to, the bandwidth. Now we'll select create. Validation's passed. We'll just click create. Wait for this resource deployment to complete, and then we will take the service key that gets created here. So we'll go to the resource. Copy the service key here. And we'll go to Oracle Cloud. We have DRG and everything already created, so we'll basically just jump right into Fast Connect. Select Microsoft Azure, click Next. Provide all the required information. One thing to note here is on the Azure side, you don't go and configure anything from the Express route perspective. All of these BGP settings will get pushed from the Oracle side. So this is where you will actually provide all the BGP information that you need. And then once you click create, it will go through a deployment process, and then it will automatically will configure your Express route. Now you can verify your access route and also make sure that you are deployed on two separate logical devices. This is all automated. Oracle will automatically deploy you on two separate devices for the redundancy perspective. One last thing that you need to do is connect or create a connection between the VNG and the express route. So just name this, give this a name. Select the VNG that you created earlier. Select the express route and click create. Once that is created, you will see the routes are being advertised from Azure to OCI, and we'll take a look at those routes as well. Now this is complete. Let's go to the Fast Connect, and from there we'll go to the DRG. So you see the Fast Connect is currently in up state, provision state. I'll go to the DRG. You can go to the DRG directly, by the way, as well. Just wanted to, for the completeness purposes, went through the Fast Connect. All right, let's take a look at the route table that the VCNs are going to be attached to. So click on Get All Routes. And here you will see the 10.100/16, the IP VCN VNet IP address that we first created, that is being advertised over the virtual circuit. to OCI. So that's completes the demo for our interconnect. Let's jump to the next one, which would be our Equinix. So as I was mentioning earlier, Equinix has its cloud router as well. So you can use cloud router. We're going to have a third demo for Megaport MCR, which is basically what Equinix cloud router is. We just wanted to show you guys a different flavor of self-managed router as well. So that's why we picked the self-managed router here on the Equinix side. So first of all, what we'll do is we'll basically set up the self-managed router on the Equinix side, and then we'll set up the circuit that will connect the self-managed router to OCI, and vice versa. You will have to set up a second circuit from the self-managed router to the other cloud service provider, that be AWS, GCP, Azure, whichever you're using. And the main difference between Azure Interconnect or this type of connectivity is the presence of partner. Now, there is a third-party partner that you actually have to manage a relationship to provide you this particular connectivity. So let's begin. All right, so we'll start out with the third-party device here. In this particular case, we are going to use YOS. Select a single device. So we will launch the device first. So this is basically just going over the device creation process, how you will basically just select the region, the device itself, and all the billing information and all that. And then at the same time, device parameters itself. And then once you have accepted, launch the device, then we'll go to the connectivity piece. So here we're just going to give the device name, how many interfaces you want, and any kind of device notifications that you want to set up. Click next. Just add a user for you to basically manage the device. Select the key. Now set the access list. So this is for you to actually able to SSH into this device to manage this device, because you will have to configure this, at least the BGP portion in the interface IP addresses. Accept order terms and launch. So this will get the third-party router created on the Equinix side. Now we'll connect this device to Oracle. We would need an OCID, so we'll just show you first the piece, how to create a connection to this particular device, and then we'll go to Oracle console. So click on create connection. So select Oracle. So the origin port is going to be your third-party device that you just created. And the destination is going to be Oracle. Select the region that you want to build this connection to. Give this the connection name. And for the virtual circuit OCID, we'll go back to Oracle console and then create a fast connect using Equinix as a partner and give that OCID to back into the Equinix portal. So select fast connect, Equinix fabric, click next, give this a name, the DRG, bandwidth, BGP information that you will be using. So this BGP is going to be between your third-party device and the Oracle Edge router. OCID, you will take this OCID and put it in the Equinix portal. Click next, select the interface of the device that you want to connect this to. In this particular case, we're just going to use Ethernet 2. Click next. Submit order. And once this completes, you will have the physical connectivity there. Still, the connectivity is not gonna be end to end. We do have to configure the third-party device that we are basically using for router. So we'll get the public IP from here and then SSH directly into the device and set up the BGP. Okay. Commit, save, exit. This will bring your BGP up. In this, for the sake of time, we are not showing you the second piece of connectivity that you will do with AWS or Azure on towards this particular device. But if you look at the BGP here, both BGP are up right now, and the end-to-end connectivity, you also see the prefix received and prefix sent. So the end-to-end connectivity at this point is established. And if you want to test it, you can test it. So that ends the second demo, which is basically Equinix. For the last demo, we have Megaport. And for that, I will hand it over back to Jake to do the demo.
There's a lot of steps here. So just remember that if you got lost anywhere, the live lab will walk you through every one of these steps. So just to let everybody know, we'll talk about that one more time before we close out the session. But this will be the third and final demonstration that we'll be doing today. So this is the Megaport Cloud Router. And there's three aspects we want you to remember from the MCR integration with OCI. So first, it's a managed cloud router offering from Megaport, which means that you're not SSHing into a router. You're really just connecting your private connections into this router, and Megaport's pretty much doing the rest of it. MCR is a layer 3 termination point. So it gives you the ability to centralize your routing in Megaport, which it avoids point-to-point connections. So if I have 5 different pieces of infrastructure that I need to connect to, the old architecture was to create 5 private connections for each one of those, which would mean 5 times 5, which is 25 private connections, right? And then you add redundancy. So it doesn't scale well if you have to make point-to-point connections, and these cloud routers are a large cost avoidance from a private connectivity perspective. So you just connect to the cloud router, and then the cloud router is aware of all the other connections. Last but not least, just as the others have stated, this is multi-cloud connectivity can be established in less than an hour. So all this infrastructure is pre-provisioned within OCI and Megaport. So when you're ready to go and you want to light up your infrastructure, it should take very little time to establish the connectivity. You'll be very surprised if you haven't done this before. That being said, let's go ahead and kick off our final demo for today, which is establishing connectivity to Azure using the Megaport Cloud Router. So we'll start in the OCI console and go into the networking section, which is we should be a little familiar with now, and build a new fast connect specifically for the Megaport connection. So we'll make sure that we're in the correct compartment. In the bottom left-hand corner, it says multi-cloud connectivity, and then click on Create Fast Connect. We'll select the partner, of which we have many, and we will select Megaport, and then we'll click on Next. And just as the other connections that we've built, this is pretty much the same. So hopefully, if nothing else, there's a little bit of redundancy here, which will give you some confidence when you're building this connection. So we'll give it a name, Megaport 1, and we will select the dynamic routing gateway and the provisioned bandwidth. We do minimum 1 gig. And then we'll do some point-to-point IPs or non-routable IP space to establish a connection between OCI and the Megaport Cloud Router over this private connection that we're building. And then once that's done, we'll put in the ASN, the autonomous system number for Megaport, and then we'll create the connection. What's cool here is that there is an integration between Megaport's console and the OCI console. So I can actually log into Megaport directly through OCI and create a new Megaport Cloud Router. So that's what we'll be doing here. So I will create a new Megaport Cloud Router. I'll name it something, which is anything could be done here. There's other options as well, such as setting your country, your location. Really what you want to do is be in between the the several pieces of infrastructure that you're in, and be as centralized as you can to minimize latency. So that's why there's a lot of options here. We chose going into Ashburn because that's what we were connecting. However, you could pretty much connect anywhere in the world. Once we've built the MCR out, we actually want to do the virtual cross connect, which is the actual private piece of infrastructure that is being built out. So we'll name this something that makes sense to us during the build out. I'm just prefix or suffix is #1 so that I know this is the first connection that I'm building to the cloud router. Afterwards, it'll tell you cost details and acceptance of the provisioning details, and you'll click on go. This is sped up at this point, but once this is done, it usually takes less than 10 minutes. It will build the MCR, it will build the BXC, and it will establish connectivity between OCI and the Megaport Cloud Router. So it's almost so easy that we want to make sure that we show this a different way, which is you can go into the Megaport Cloud console and see that the cloud router and the Megaport connection that we built is there. It's green, which means that it's established and we're good to go. The next step would be to just click on cloud, and you would just type in your third-party cloud, and you would add in your service key for ExpressRoute in this instance, and then you would have the connection over into the third-party cloud provider. So Megaport makes it very easy to establish connectivity between clouds and make it very easy to connect into OCI. So this concludes our presentation / demonstrations for today. I really hope everybody had meaningful and great experience today. So as stated earlier, the Multicloud Live Lab is what this framework is built off of. So grab your smartphone, pull out your camera, and save this link. I know Renu has also shared the link as well. So we want to make sure that if you haven't ran through this live lab, at least walk through the videos and understand the steps. You don't necessarily have to do it in the console, but those steps are available whether you just want to do a quick walkthrough or do the deep dive and actually build all the resources. The slide deck will also be shared, so I'm not going to go through all of the references. However, there's several pieces of this session that would not have been possible without all of these other public pieces of information that we have, and they're noted here.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank
And
you.
Austin. Yeah, awesome session. Great content here. And I would like to thank Vinod, Achintya, and Cam also for fielding the questions in the Q&A panel. I'm sure everyone found this session useful and learned something new today. Our next session will be on Monday, June 17th, where we'll cover DNS architecture on OCI. You'll get an overview of the core concepts of private DNS, public DNS, and DNS management overall. So if you're interested, please do not forget to register for the session. I would recommend that you bookmark the Devon and Beyond page and check frequently for new sessions on trending topics.
Yes, I think we have a question here. Let me read out the question. Eduardo asked if he disables the accelerator, is it possible to force OCI block? But he thinks this might not be a good approach for the performance. Just to add a little bit flavor to this, if you are using Oracle public peering from the Fastnet perspective, and you want to route traffic to that public peering, and then if those destinations are not being routed over those public peerings, in this Eduardo's case, it's Akamai. If you disable accelerator, that might or might not add latency. So that's why I would recommend we would have to look at from the routing perspective, where are the sources, where are the destinations, and how you're routing traffic. I would say disabling accelerator might not be a good approach because it might add latency. So the best course of action in this particular case would be just ask your account team, if you are already using OCI, to get you in touch with a specialist team, and they can then review the whole architecture that you currently have and then recommend a proper approach how to solve this particular problem.
In addition to whatever you shared today, both of you, is there any other best practice or recommendation that you would like to share with the audience? Sorry for putting you on spot.
No, no, this is actually a good question. I would say not the best practice, but when you are trying to deploy a multi-cloud connectivity, make sure that your use case, whichever use case you are doing this for, your applications can sustain this extra latency that gets added between the cloud service providers. Sometimes your applications are tolerant to that particular latency, and sometimes they are not. In those cases, you can also consider, putting app tier and database tier in the same CSP, which you might benefit from the performance that Oracle provides when it comes to databases. So the one piece of advice would be always do check the latency and also make sure that the application that you are trying to deploy between the clouds, it's not latency dependent. And if it is latency dependent, make sure whatever latency you are getting, it's not impacting your performance.
Awesome. Thank you. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Jake and Mohsin, for this great session. See you all next time. Have a great day, everyone.